I am a history buff. Any of you guys like history? Love me some history. The SS United States is a ship. It was built in like 1950, 1951. It made its maiden voyage in 1952. It was built, it cost, the price tag back then was $80 million. Can you imagine what that would translate into now? Huge. This was an enormous ship. It was built and designed for $80 million, right? And the U.S. government, when the U.S. Navy found out about the plan for this vessel, they decided that they were on board with this because it happened at the tail end of World War II, and we saw the need to immediately be able to transport troops from place to place really fast. And the SS United States was built to be the fastest ship. And the only ship that was solely built in America at the time. It's kind of a cool ship. It broke records for speed. I mean, just broke huge records for speed going across the Atlantic. I mean, it was really a remarkable thing. The U.S. government decided we like this so much, we're going to jump in. We're going to pitch in with this. And they contributed $50 million to the project. That's a huge price tag, isn't it? But the U.S. government, the Navy, decided we like this enough. We're going to throw our money behind this because at any point we can commission this, requisition this ship to be a troop transport ship. So later on, when you get home, look up some facts about the SS United States. It's kind of a cool story. So they threw their money in, $50,000 to create the SS United States with the hopes that if we needed it, we can requisition this ship to be able to transport an entire fleet, an entire troop of military people to go from shore to shore, right? Well, that never happened. The ship was done in 1952, and it actually it was a luxury liner catered to wealthy individuals. The ship that was designed to carry troops into battle instead was a luxury liner carrying passengers across the ocean. Can I just tell you, church, when I read this story this week, I thought about, Lord, the church of Jesus Christ, we are designed to be a troop transport ship. We're designed to take soldiers from this land to our promised land. And yet, we kind of have treated the church like a luxury liner. I'm not, y'all know, like I kind of operate in some grace and love, and man, I'm not a hellfire and brimstone kind of gal. Though sometimes I will joke with my kids that my 3 points for the sermon today are hell, fire, and brimstone. Though I've never actually preached that message, but I do believe this: that the Church of Jesus Christ, like when Jesus left this earth, He gave us a mission. Didn't He? We're to live on purpose because we were created for a purpose. We were not just created for our pleasure. We were created for His pleasure. And so what we've done the last 5 weeks is we've been drawing this thread between these 5 different things: your purpose in life. What is your purpose? Because every one of us get to that point where we ask ourselves, what am I here for? Have you ever asked? I've asked myself that. Have you asked yourself that? Like, what the heck am I here for? What's the point of this life that I'm living? There's got to be something more than waking up, getting to work 5 minutes late, apologizing to your boss that you're late again. There's got to be something more than deadlines, projects. Got to be something more than getting home and having to cook dinner for your people again. Got to be something more than washing the same clothes that you just washed 4 days ago. Got to be something more to this life than just the same old, right? Got to be something more to this. And so next Sunday, I just want to encourage you, if you've missed the series, do not miss next Sunday. because next Sunday we are wrapping it up. We're putting a bow on this sucker. We're going, and it's so like I said, if you've missed, what's my first purpose? We're going to get to that. We're going to review some next Sunday, and I cannot wait. I'm excited about next Sunday's message to really pull all of these threads back together to see this picture that we've been painting over the last 5 or 6 weeks. Today, our fifth purpose. What's the fifth purpose? You were made for a mission. You were made for a mission. The Church of Jesus Christ is not a luxury liner. It doesn't matter, like the color on the walls, it's nice. I'm never going to fight with you about the color on the walls, you know? Like the having coffee, having all the nice things, like this is wonderful. I'm so thankful that we live in a place where we can have a beautiful, comfortable church. This is such a comfortable building. Like when I walk in here, I'm like, I love this place. I really do. I'm like, dude, I love this place. Someday I'm going to change those light fixtures, but I love this place, you know? Like it's such a beautiful, comfortable building. But the purpose of the church, the Big C Church, it's not a luxury liner. We're a troop transport ship designed to take people from this life to the light, to the what you were created for, to spend eternity with Jesus. So today our big idea, for those of you who don't know me, I like to have a big idea. It drives where we're going so that we're on purpose, so that it keeps me from standing up here and rambling at you for 30 minutes. Y'all should say thank you, because we don't want me rambling for 30 minutes. It can happen really easily without a big idea. Here's our big idea. I was made for a mission. I was made for a mission. We call it evangelism. Evangelism. What do you think of when you hear the word evangelism? I wonder. This week I kind of thought, like, what do I think of when I hear evangelism? I think of men in sharp suits asking for money on the TV, telling you they'll send you a prayer cloth if you send them $25. When I think of evangelism, I think of people, rich preachers who have planes. You know, when I think of evangelism, I think back to the early 90s when I was first starting out in ministry, and I was a pastor in Des Moines, Iowa, and we did this thing called Evangelism Explosion, where we did like a 6-week course where they taught us literally to go from door to door, cold turkey. If you've never done this, even for a woman brazen like me to go from door to door, like this was still hard, but they taught us how to evangelize, to go door to door, like the Jehovah's Witnesses. And we were trained to ask certain questions. Like, can you imagine? We maybe should go back to this. I don't know. But I remember going to doors and saying, hello, my name is Amy Mitchell, and I work at the church down the road. If you were to die today, it's like starting a sentence like that, but that's what I was trained to do evangelism properly, was you started, and you always added this caveat, God forbid. Brent, hi Brent, I'm Amy Mitchell. If you were to die today, God forbid, you got to add the God forbid to be gracious, and you were to stand before God, and he said, why should I let you into my heaven? What would you say? That's word for word. Like, that's how well I memorized that statement. If you were to die today, God forbid, and you stood before God, and he said, why should I let you into my heaven? What would you say? That was the cold turkey evangelism that we did back in the 80s, the 90s. And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying I don't do that anymore, but I'm still brazen, you know? I'm still, and that's not always a bad word. When we hear the word brazen, growing up, I only heard the word brazen in line with another word. Does anyone? Thank you so much. I was trying to think, can I say hussy at church? I can say hussy at church. I only heard the word brazen associated with the word hussy because I would hear people say, well, she's a brazen hussy. But man, we've ripped words out of the English dictionary and made them things that they weren't. The word brazen is bold and unashamed. It doesn't have anything to do with being a hussy. You can be a brazen hussy, and now that's the last time I'm going to say that word today. You can also be a brazen waitress. You can be a brazen pastor, a brazen salesperson, a brazen student. I can be bold and without shame. That's what we can do. Let's start reclaiming some words that the world has ripped off and given them some purpose. So when we think of evangelism, sometimes we've got a misguided idea of what it is. It doesn't have to be, it can be someone knocking on your door and asking you that question, but it can be someone when you're out at the grocery store and someone is hurting and you can see it on their face. Come on, y'all are just like me. You can be out in public and you can see someone wearing pain on their face. Being brazen for Jesus, evangelism may just look like you saying, hey, I don't mean to be intrusive, but you look like you're hurting. Can I pray with you? Like, we can do that, you guys. We can do that. I was made for a mission. Every believer has two kinds of missions, okay? We've got our custom mission and our common mission. Last Sunday, we talked about that custom mission. What are you created to do? What is your shape? What are your spiritual gifts? What are the things that you are passionate about? The thing that God created you to do. Listen, I was not created to do math or science things. That hurts my heart, hurts my brain. I was created to teach. That is what I was designed to do. I was designed to study and to teach what I've studied, as long as it's not math or science, okay? That is my shape. I know who I am. And when I get out of that shape, it's a mess and no one wants to be around me. But my shape, I know who I am. I have a custom shape, but I have a common mission. We have a common mission. It's called evangelism. Jesus showed us the model, the prototype. He showed us what it was to live on mission. Listen to a few of these verses. John 17:18. In the same way that you gave me a mission in the world, I gave them a mission in the world. This is Jesus talking to God. He's saying, the same way you gave me a mission, I gave them a mission. John 20:21. As the Father has sent me, I am sending you. Jesus, as the Father has sent me, I'm sending you. Acts 20:24, and I picked it out of this translation because I think the word reckon, it brings back to mind of growing up in Tennessee. He says, but I reckon my own life to be worth nothing to me. This is Paul, the great apostle. I reckon my life to be worth nothing to me. I only want to complete my mission and finish the work that the Lord Jesus gave me to do, which is to declare the good news about the grace of God. Acts 1:8, you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and in Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth. Witness. Your job, your mission, my mission is to be a witness for Jesus. Man, if any of you guys like the courtroom dramas, I can do a courtroom drama, never doing ER, never going to do anything medical that involves blood or cutting. I don't want anything to do with it. But I can get behind a good drama about a courtroom. If you'll think back to those courtroom dramas, they'll call three different kinds of witnesses. They'll call an expert witness, they'll call a character witness, and they'll call an eyewitness. You and I are meant to be a witness for Jesus. Now, you might not be an expert witness. Okay, so what? You may not be an expert witness. You may not be able to tell me all there is to know about eschatology and blah, 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 and all the Greek and Hebrew of the words. You don't have to be an expert witness. But what you can be is you can be a character witness. Can you witness about the character of God and say, man, I know God is good. I don't know much, but I know that he loves me. You can witness about his character, but an eyewitness. This is the thing that we are called to be, is an eyewitness. What does Paul do? He says, my life is worth crud if I don't use it to tell people about the grace of God, to witness to people and share with them what Jesus has done for me. I'm an eyewitness, not an expert witness. I'm going to be able to tell you, man, this is how Jesus has changed my life. So, why does God want us to witness? Why? Why? Isn't that the pastor's job? Y'all know how many times that's the idea people think, is that it's the pastor's job to be a witness. It's my job to tell people about Jesus, but that's not biblical. There's no parentheses when I read these scriptures about whose job it is. Why do we witness? Remember this, we talked about this weeks ago, because God wanted a family. It was his plan from the beginning of time to create a family of believers. And that family involves more than just you. So here's my line of thinking. If all the purpose was for God to create you and get you saved so you can go to heaven, do you know what I would have done if I were God? I'd have killed you right away. I mean, like, I'm just going to be honest. Because how many times do people come to Jesus and then they walk away? If I were God, which you should all thank God that I'm not God, if I were God, the minute you saved, boom, you're dead. I'm just going to take you home, and let's remove any risk of you walking away from Jesus. I will remove it all, and I will take you home. But that was not God's plan. Why? Because he wanted a family. And my job on earth is not just to get saved, but it's to be a transport ship where I help take people with me when I go. Y'all get that? All right, say thank you, Jesus, that Pastor Amy isn't God. Why else? Why else is it important that we witness? Because this is the one thing that you can only do here on earth that you cannot do in heaven. Listen, when you die, you will worship Jesus better than you can do here. This is such a weird thought, but just track with me. We can worship Jesus here. Remember our first purpose? I was made to love God. I was made to worship God. Well, you can love God here, but you'll do it better in heaven, right? I was made to worship. I'll do it better there. But here, this is, when you get to heaven, you don't get to introduce people to Jesus for the first time. That's the thing that you can only do here. When I get to heaven, I don't need to introduce anyone to Jesus because, ta-da, he is there, you know? So we do that. Why else? Why else do we witness and share what Jesus has done? Listen, because I love God and I care about the things that he cares about. I love God. I care about the things that he cares about. So when I see somebody that is hurting, that is lost, and it is within my power to share the love of Jesus and I don't, do you know what I'm effectively saying to them? This may shock you that I'm about to say this, or maybe not, because I say shocking things. If you know somebody, if you love someone, you work with someone, you live with someone that doesn't have a relationship with Jesus, and you don't share the love of Jesus with him, you are effectively saying to them, you can go to hell. I mean, that's a bold thing to say, but am I wrong? No, you're effectively saying to them, you can go to hell. I'm okay. Like, okay. Let's look back at Acts 1:8 again. It said, you will be witnesses in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth. It's important to know when Jesus said that where he was. Where, because details matter. When we know details, it changes the thing, right? Where was Jesus when he says, you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem? He was talking in Jerusalem. So what is Jesus saying effectively there? He's saying, you will be my witnesses, but you start where you are. I love that. He didn't start with the ends of the earth. He started with do it where you are. Be my witness where you are, where you live, where you work, where you play. And then he says, you'll be my witnesses in Judea and Samaria. It's as if he's drawing the circles, concentric circles, the target, right? You'll be my witness in Jerusalem, where you are. Then let's throw out the net, cast it a little bit bigger. Then you'll be my witnesses in Samaria, and Judea and Samaria, which is where we're more closely related, but maybe they're different. Because remember, he's talking to Jews at this moment, and he's saying you'll be my witnesses in Judea and Samaria, which they're people that are they're in proximity, but they're different from them. That's just fact. They're just different from them. Jesus is saying, be my witnesses here where you live and in Judea and Samaria. Also kind of where you live in reference to location, but also be my witnesses to people that are different than you. Man, I don't want a church of all same. I don't want a homogenous group. I like that there are different kinds of people in the body of Christ. We don't want them all to look like me or like Lonnie. Then what does he say? To the ends of the earth. The ends of the earth is everyone else. So simple. Evangelism, it's more than just a good idea. This is a God idea. So let's break this down today. If we're going to complete the mission, you and I were created to be on mission, to be on mission for Jesus, evangelizing the world, not being weird, but evangelizing, taking Jesus to the people you work with, the people that check you out at the grocery store, the people that deliver your packages. We're to be a witness. If we're going to complete this mission, there's a few things that we have to do. First thing, I share with those in my world. In my world. There's a story in Mark chapter 5. It's in a couple of the other Gospels too, but Mark chapter 5, it's a story of a man who is demon possessed. He's demonized. He is so crazy, he lives in a graveyard. That's crazy, right? I mean, that's modern day. He's homeless and he lives in the graveyard. All right, and he meets with Jesus. Listen to what happens. He meets with Jesus, and his life is transformed. Jesus casts out the demons that are living in this man. He gives him a new lease on life. Normally, when Jesus meets someone and they come to know Jesus, normally he said, "Come follow me." But listen to what he says in Mark chapter 5, starting at verse 18. It says, "As Jesus was getting into the boat," he'd already done the miracle. He had already delivered the man, okay? So now you got former naked, demonized man who he's fully in his right mind. Hopefully he's wearing clothing by now. It says, as Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. That's pretty awesome. He meets Jesus and he wants to go with Jesus, but here's what Jesus said. Jesus did not let him, but said, "Go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you." So the man went away and began to tell in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and all the people were amazed. He wanted to follow Jesus, and Jesus says, no. Instead, go home. Man, this is such a cool word, go home. In the original language, which was Greek, the Greek word for home that is used here is a word that you'll be familiar with because of yogurt. How weird is this? It's the word oikos. Everyone say oikos. You just said a Greek word. You guys are expert witnesses right now, right? Oikos. Some people, you could say oikos, but I think the pronunciation in the biblical Greek would be oikos. Jesus used this word. He says, you can't follow me, but instead go home. And that word oikos meant your household. It didn't, now in our culture, your household may look like for us right now, it looks like me, my husband, and one kid, because the other two are away at college because they ran away. But if you even think about different cultures, even in our world, if you were to go to Little Italy, if you were to go to Chicago, if you go to a population that is heavily populated with the Hispanic culture, their version of family is different than our version of family. Not all, but a lot of times you got your mama, your daddy, you may have a grandparent or two living there, you may have an auntie or an uncle living there. Like, we lived near Chicago, and like we had a lot of diversity where we lived. It was kind of beautiful. And that idea of family would be much more in line with what the biblical version of family would look like. Instead of our tiny little families, our little nuclear families, it would be, back in those days, it would have been your mama, your grandparents, your slaves. I'm not saying, please get this. When Scripture talks about slaves, it was a different institution than the evil institution we know of slavery in our world now. It was different. I'm not saying it was right. I'm saying it was different. Y'all tracking with that? So in that culture, you would have had a much different view of home. It would have been the people that you did life with intimately, which was so much different than what we do now. Jesus, he says, you don't get to come with me, but instead go home. But what does he tell him to do? Go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you. I love that. He does not say go home and preach a 3-point sermon and tell them that they better get saved or they're going to burn in hell. That's not what Jesus does. He says instead, which lets us off the hook in a beautiful, gracious way, go home and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you. Can y'all do that? I can do that. You may not be able to preach a properly 3-point homiletic sermon, but can you tell someone what Jesus has done for you? You can do that. We've got an oikos. Every one of us has an oikos. We're going to get to our oikos in a minute. But I want to explain. I want to give you a tool at the end of the sermon. I'm going to give you a tool, put it in your hand, of how you can effectively reach your oikos. But one thing I want to explain to you is, what does your oikos look like? Here's the working definition that we at Lifestream Church have been using, is that God has supernaturally and strategically placed anywhere from 8 to 15 people in your relational world. In your relational world that you can share Jesus with. That's your oikos. That he is supernaturally and strategically. God is not a God of accidents. He doesn't do things halfway. He's a God of purpose. You are at the job you are for a purpose. You are in the family you are in for a purpose. You live in the city you live in for a purpose. Because God is a God of purpose. You are supernaturally and strategically have anywhere from 8 to 15 people in your relational world that you can make an impact on. What the beauty of this is, it lets me off the hook that I don't have to today get all of Union saved. Okay? When Jesus says go back home, he's saying go back to your oikos, go back to the people that you are in close enough relationship with that you can affect change in their life. So what that looks like, this is weird, but come on, y'all. Your oikos, for me, for a long time, it was a waitress at White Rose Cafe. Like her name's Becky. She doesn't work there anymore. I was kind of bummed when she left, because I'd go work with Becky. I'd go I didn't need to pay $8 for a burger. I could have gone to McDonald's and gotten a cheaper burger. But Becky I struck up a conversation with Becky. And so I strategically went there on purpose. And I would say, I'd ask for Becky. And I would talk to Becky every time. Now I go and I talk to Cassie. And I'll talk to a little girl named Madonna. I'll talk to these sweet, and some of you might know them, and I don't even care. They're delightful, and I will go talk to them. If they'll talk to me, I'll talk to them. Some of you go to McDonald's for their unsweet tea, and you talk to the cashier, and the cashier knows you by name. And you go through the drive-thru, and the drive-thru knows you by name. Here's what that tells me. You may have an addiction to unsweet tea at McDonald's. But it tells me you're on purpose. You know what I mean? You're intentional. You recognizing the people in your community, your oikos. I don't have to create them. I don't have to go out and hunt them down. I just have to observe. Who are the people that are already there? It might be a waitress that you frequent that restaurant once a week or once a day. It may be the cashier at Casey's when you stop and get a soda every day on your way to work. That person could be a person in your oikos. It could be the person that works in the cubicle next to you, or the guy who slings a hammer next to you. We've all got people in our household or our oikos that God has strategically and supernaturally placed in our world, that we have a relationship with them and we can make a difference in their life. But being strategic and purposeful, that's where it's at. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes, though. Recognizing what our oikos is, if we look at our life as a play. I love plays. I love musicals, except West Side Story. But plays are wonderful. If you've ever been to the Fox Theater, you'll know that there's the balcony, the nosebleed seats. You'll recognize that there's the main floor, but then there's the front row, the orchestra section, right? If you look at your life in that setting, your oikos are the people in the front row. You're going to have a balcony section in your life. My balcony there's even family members in my balcony, because I may only see them once every year or 2 years. I do not have a close enough working relationship with some of my family because they live so far away. They live in Tennessee. I'm not with them all the time. I may see them once every 2 years at a Christmas or a Thanksgiving gathering, and I'll have a good, meaningful conversation, but I'm not in their working world. right? And then there's those people on the main floor that maybe you rub shoulders with. Maybe it's a coworker that you get to talk to once a month, once every 2 months, somebody in your close world. But that oikos, they're the people who see you up close and personal, the ones who you sweat with, who you work with, who you do life with. They're the people that are closer in your proximity that we can be intentional and purposeful. So we're going to, by the way, Linda, where's Linda? Linda's a product of someone's dance card. Linda loved Jesus. Linda, I know you were saved before, but I don't know that you know this, but Jake Rogers had you on his dance card. Isn't that cool? Jake Rogers had you on his dance card, and Linda would talk to Jake, and you would pray together. But you knew Jesus. You just weren't involved in a church body. You didn't have a family. You were an orphan. You loved Jesus. You had a father, but you weren't amongst the family of faith. And so Linda comes to church. And then guess what? Mandy comes to church. And Mandy brings her whole brood of kids to church. Like, how cool? How cool is that? Like, so we can see the brood of kids. I love that. So how cool. Listen, someone being on purpose with a dance card that he knew that you were searching and you were hungry for a place to belong. He wrote you on his dance card. He prayed for you and he invited you. And then you came and you were hooked because we loved you. Like, we love you. I can't even imagine this church without you, Linda. You belong here. She's crazy. If you don't, like, crazy people belong at Livestream Church. Mandy, we love your kids. We love your family. Benny got baptized last week. Joel got baptized last winter. Like, how beautiful. So we can see this beautiful model of oikos in action where we reach our relational world for Jesus. There's another thing that we're going to have to do, though. We have to dare to reach beyond our world. And this is going to go a little bit quicker, but listen, this is the idea of the Judea and Samaria that now we're looking at the floor seating, but not necessarily the front row. These are the people we have to be willing to dare to reach beyond our own little world. Come on, troop carrier, not luxury liner. If we want to take people to heaven with us, we got to dare to reach beyond just our front row. And we got to do some things that are going to get us out there. Here's what Paul's advice was in 1 Corinthians 9:22. He says, when I'm with those who are weak, I share their weaknesses. For I want to bring them, the weak, to Christ. Yes, I try to find common ground with everyone, doing everything I can to save some. Paul's saying, man, wait, he's not saying be like the people you're with, but can you find some common ground with the people you're with? When you're out in public, I'll tell you, and I think I've told you this several times, the quickest way that I have a conversation with people about and getting into their world is ask them about their tattoos. I know it's so strange to tell you, but I do this. Like, this is my thing because I've never met anyone who said, no, I don't want to tell you about my tattoo. They don't do that. You put a mark on your body, you want to tell people about that. So that has been my quickest way to find some common ground with people is I'll say, that's a cool tattoo on your arm. Tell me about that. Opens so many doors for me to have conversation with complete strangers. Love doing that. We can find some common ground. Reaching beyond your oikos, your own front row, it's going to require a few things. It's going to require intentionality. What does Jesus say in Luke 14:23? He says, go out to the roads and country lanes and compel them to come in so that my house will be full. It's going to require intentionality. It's going to require creativity. Why do we do a pit stop? Why do we do that? Because I said so. All right, well, that could work. Or because we're creatively reaching into our community. Like, we could just sit here and say, the doors are open at 10 a.m., come to us. Or we can be an appealing place and invite the world in. Why do we do movies in the park? Roger Robin, when we go take popcorn to people at the park, we're doing that because we're being creative and reaching into our community. And I've never preached a sermon to anyone at the movies in the park, but I've prayed with people at the movie in the park, the concert in the park. I've had good, meaningful conversations with people around a park bench. Like, we can do those things. It's going to require intentionality, creativity, and it's going to require some work. Come on. It's going to require work. What is Galatians 6:2 says? Stoop down. Some of your knees are bad. Stooping down's hard. Stoop down and reach out to those who are oppressed. Share their burdens and so complete Christ's law. What's the law of Christ? Love God, love people. Love God, love people. That's it. Love God. Maybe that will be the tattoo I eventually get on my body. But I won't. Because I think it hurts. So I'm probably not going to do it. But if I do, it's going to say love God, love people, right? Reaching means more than just preaching too. Reaching your world means more than just preaching. It's not just about the message I share. Jesus even talked about if you've given out a cup of water in my name, you've done this for me. Nikki, would you come on up real quick? Man, I like this lady. And she does not like talking in front of people, really. But apparently I've done that twice today, so I'm just getting good at this. Nikki, we've got a thing that we're doing at Lifestream Church that's helping us reach into our community in a deliberate, creative way. And I just wanted her to share really quickly what she's doing.
All right, so every year we do Christmas food boxes.
Up higher.
For people in the church and people in the community. One of my favorite things is, this is our 5th year, and we'll help Autumn Hill families with food boxes. So we will do a special collection in November and December where we collect money and we'll go out and buy the food. We'll get these boxes. On December 16th, we'll fill them up and deliver them and bless those people with food for Christmas.
About how many boxes did we do last year?
About 40.
About 40 boxes of food. That's awesome, isn't it? All right, Nikki, are we still friends?
Yes.
Listen, on November 26th and December 3rd, we're just going to take up a simple offering. None of that offering is going to go to me. We're not doing anything to the building. It's all just to buy food to put in boxes so that we can bless people in our own community. People on the main floor, but maybe you're not part of our life. We're just showing the love of Jesus because that's what we're going to do. And I've said this, but listen, we do good deeds to garner goodwill so that we can share the good news. And it's all good. Good deeds open a door where I can garner some goodwill with people. And then eventually I can share the good news with people. Your purpose in life is reaching beyond just you, us, four, and no more. It's reaching into our community. But listen, if we're going to be on mission for Jesus, we're going to have to care about the whole world too. And I have to care about the whole world. Mark 16:15, he says, and then he told them, go into all the world and preach the good news to everyone. John Piper, he says this, you can go, you can send, or you can disobey. But those are your only 3 choices. That's pretty poignant. You can go when it comes to reaching the whole world. You can go, and if you can go, go. Or you can send. You can send. I send by giving. I send by praying. Or I can disobey. That's it. Pick your choice, pick your option, and do one of those things, okay? And we have opportunities. I think Lifestream Church, I can't remember how many. Dennis, how many missionaries do we support? 66 missionaries. That's awesome. 66 missionaries that we support that are taking the love of Jesus all around the world and parts of the world that we can't even talk about in church. Literally, like we have certain missionaries that when they come here, we can't even live stream our service because they're in such sensitive parts of the country and parts of the world that they could be arrested and put in prison for sharing Jesus with people. We are helping. We are doing our part. So for us, for Lonnie and I, we give our tithe. We faithfully pay our tithes because we want the blessing of the Lord, and I would rather have 90% with the blessing of God than 100% of my salary without the blessing of God, okay? So, and that, I'm not asking for your money. If you're not part of Lifestream Church, we don't want you keep your money, right? Okay? But what else we do on top of that is we give to missions above and beyond that because I personally, I'm not going. I'm not going to Africa. Like I went to El Salvador this summer for 10 days. Okay, I left and they carried on. You know, like it doesn't mean what we did wasn't significant or important, but I want to be a part of continuing missions around the world. And so when I can go, I want to go. But I can give every month. And so I'm giving. So we make it super easy. Listen, there's an envelope under your seat for giving. You can designate it for missions. You can pay your tithe or give online. And this is not a whole big sermon about money, but I'm just telling you, like, that idea that if I want to care about the world that God cares about, I pray, I go, or I disobey. That's it. Those are my options. An opportunity to care about the world, though. We've got one quick video I want to show you guys. We've got an opportunity to care for the people on the main floor, people in Franklin County that need Jesus. And if you know somebody that could really benefit from a meal box, a blessing box in the middle of December, Nikki, wave your hand again. Talk to Nikki after church. What we do is we get their name, we get their information, and you can be a part of putting those boxes together, actually. On December 16th, we'll be doing it at the Washington campus, but we'll be able to put all those boxes together. We'll have different teams of people go and actually deliver those boxes. It's a really special thing. But then reaching beyond just the people in our own world, Franklin County, here's an opportunity. Go ahead and show that video, would you, Drew?
My name is Moises Grosinger, and I'm from El Salvador. I actually don't know much about my own country because I was in an orphanage in the middle of nowhere, and that's where I grew up. Every Sunday after church service, it was family day for those who had parents. Every year, I waited and not having them visit me, so I always asked myself, if I wasn't good enough for my parents, would I ever be good enough for anyone else? So that day when we were told that there were going to be people coming to our homes to bring us gifts, and they kept repeating the phrase, "Jesus loves you," I started to walk away when a man motions me back, and he tells me, "Where are you going? You don't have a shoebox yet." And I quickly replied, "But I don't have any parents." And that's when he looked directly into my eyes, and with a smile on his face, he just hands me the shoebox and he tells me Jesus loves me. As I received it, I kept looking at it, and I started to walk away, and I looked back to see if the man was going to come back and take the shoebox back, but he didn't, and he knew what I was thinking, so he just smiled and waited for everybody to have a moment to open the shoebox. That day was just full of joy. So my wow item was a soccer ball, and I couldn't believe that it was mine. That I just remember opening it and receiving that soccer ball, and I just remember just playing in the orphanage. We had a big field to play on, and I just remember running with the soccer ball all over the orphanage. So it was that moment when I realized that I was loved and I was seen. With my shoebox, I also received the Greatest Gift booklet, and that's when my prayer journey began, and I started to pray for a family. When I was 10 years old, I was called into the office of the orphanage, and I was told that there was going to be a family in the United States who wanted to adopt me, and I was introduced to my adopted family, and I just remember running to them and calling them familia. Now I live my life saying yes to the Lord because I have no reason to say no. He did not just give me a family, but He gave me a new life.
We've got a few boxes left. I think, Nikki, do we have a few boxes? We got a few boxes out in the lobby. If this is an opportunity that we can be a part of taking the love of Jesus around the world. Worship team, would you join me up front? And if you did not get a chance to pick up a box, would you do that this week? Next Sunday morning, we're going to be... They're due back next week, yeah. So we still got a few boxes. If you didn't get a chance to pick one up, pick one up. There's information. Nikki will be out there at the table after church. An opportunity for you to be able to fill that box this week. Fill it with love. Who'd have thought that a soccer ball would be a bridge to help someone have a conversation about Jesus? I love that. Man, God can use a Barbie. He can use a soccer. He can use a coloring book to help us reach into a lost world. Would you stand with me this morning? Let me go back real quick to the SS United States. That ship, it sits in the dock in Philadelphia still. That ship in 1969, it made its last voyage with passengers. In 1969, The people left the ship, the workers left the ship, they left their stuff on it thinking they were going to be able to come back to work the next day, and the ship was shut. They locked it up. They hermetically sealed the ship, actually, because they were wanting to preserve it for later on. That ship sat in harbor, and throughout the next many, many years, that ship has changed hands. One person bought that ship trying to turn it into ocean timeshares. How funny is that? They wanted to turn it into a timeshare on the ocean. Different people bought that ship. The Norwegian Cruise Line bought that ship and was going to convert it back into working order, transporting people across the ocean. And different financial collapses happened, and that ship is still sitting there. And then when the Norwegian Cruise Line tried to sell that ship for parts, people were up in arms. They were upset about it, and they began a campaign to save our ship. And people are trying to raise money now to get that ship back in working order so that it can do something other than just sit there and rust. But right now, it's just a rusting hull in the middle of the harbor in Philadelphia. Man, I just want you to know, I don't want our church to be a rusting hull just taking up space in Union, Missouri. We were designed to be out in our community. We're designed to bring the love of Jesus to the world. And man, as long as I'm here, we're going to work hard to do that. We're going to work hard because I want heaven to be crowded. I want people to come to know Jesus. Here's what 2 Peter 3:9 says. God does not want anyone to be lost, but he wants all people to change their hearts and lives. God doesn't want anyone to be lost. He wants everyone to be found. Would you pray with me this morning? Lord, I thank you. Jesus, I thank you that